A high-powered CEO finds himself alone on Christmas Eve at a bustling city restaurant, isolated despite the crowd, haunted by memories and choices. A little girl named Lily notices the lonely man while dining with her warm, loving family. Her innocent kindness compels her to reach out to him. The CEO is stunned by the little girl's question. Flashbacks of his childhood, loneliness, and past decisions unfold as he hesitantly accepts the offer. Sharing dinner with Lily's family reignites something long buried in the CEO's heart: connection, love, and the realization that he's been starving for more than food. The story concludes with a subtle transformation in the CEO's life. Inspired by the little girl's warmth, he takes the first step toward becoming someone else's miracle. A gentle winter snow blanketed the city streets in a soft hush, each flake shimmering beneath streetlights like falling stars. It was Christmas Eve in the heart of Manhattan. The city pulsed with joy, carolers on corners, couples bundled in scarves, shop windows glowing with twinkling lights, and laughter rising from every direction like warmth from a fireplace. Inside the gilded hearth, a prestigious restaurant tucked into the upper levels of an Art Deco skyscraper, the festive spirit was even more vivid. Silver garlands curled around mahogany columns, crystal chandeliers reflected golden light, and waitstaff in tuxedos floated from table to table, trays in hand. Every reservation had been taken, and the low hum of conversation blended with soft jazz renditions of holiday classics. But in a quiet corner, table 18, just beneath the antique mirror and farthest from the hearth, sat a man alone. Charles Raymond Hale III, CEO of Hale Tech International, a man whose name regularly headlined Forbes and Fortune, was staring blankly into a glass of 18-year Glenlivet. He wore a bespoke charcoal gray suit, crisp white shirt, no tie, and an expression so reserved it bordered on invisible. A navy overcoat hung on the chair beside him, draped like a forgotten companion. No one approached him. No one waved. He hadn't ordered dinner, only the scotch. The maitre d' had given him a smile and polite nod upon arrival, but even he seemed unsure how to approach the mood Charles carried, an atmosphere that spoke not of celebration, but of absence. The room was alive with connection, glasses clinking, bursts of laughter, hands held across tables, but Charles was locked in his own silent film, the sound turned off, the color washed out. He was only 52, but his eyes told a longer story. Not tired. No, not that. Something deeper. Hollow. Something deeper. As though the gears inside his mind were still grinding from meetings and mergers, even on Christmas Eve. But more than that, his loneliness wasn't just present tonight. It had roots. He hadn't always been this way. He used to love Christmas. He used to love Christmas. His father, Charles Hale II, had been a quiet man who wore his Santa hat all day just to make the kids smile. His mother would bake molasses cookies and make cocoa thick enough to stand a spoon in. The Hales had never been wealthy, but their house on Elm Street was filled with warmth, mismatched ornaments, laughter, and the sound of Bing Crosby vinyl spinning on the old record player. Fua. That was before the accident, before his parents were taken on Christmas morning when he was just 17. The trauma didn't show itself in tears. Not publicly, at least. Charles buried himself in school, in logic, in strategy. He climbed every ladder, refused every invitation to feel. By 24, he was running a startup. By 30, a millionaire. By 40, a titan. And by 52, utterly alone. He didn't speak to his sister anymore. Didn't return his assistant's awkward Christmas invitation. Didn't decorate the sleek penthouse he lived in. Christmas cards piled in a drawer unopened. His calendar was cleared for today, but not in the name of rest. Just emptiness. As he stirred the melting ice in his glass, Charles glanced across the restaurant. At the table nearest the fireplace, a young family was gathering. Two parents in their late 30s, a teenage boy in a striped shirt, and a little girl in a red velvet dress with shiny shoes. She caught his eye. She had soft brown curls tied in two loose pigtails and cheeks like blushing apples. In her hand was a green crayon she was furiously using to color a Christmas tree on a folded kids menu. At some point, she looked up and smiled at him. Not a timid smile, not a polite one. A big, toothy, fearless smile. The kind that says, "I see you." Charles blinked, caught off guard. He returned a polite nod and looked away, but something tugged inside his chest, like the gentlest thread being pulled. The girl, Lily, as he would soon learn, kept peeking over. She whispered something to her mother, who looked up and met Charles's gaze. Her expression softened and she nodded. Then Lily stood up, clutching something in her small hand. He didn't notice her approach at first. Not until he felt a tap, light as snow, on his arm. Charles turned. There she stood, just over 3 feet tall, red dress swaying gently, holding a napkin-wrapped gingerbread cookie in both hands like it was a sacred gift. "Hi," she said, voice clear and sweet. Do you want to have dinner with us?" The world stopped. Charles froze. For the first time in years, he was at a complete loss for words. He wasn't being pitched, wasn't being flattered, wasn't being asked to approve a report or sign off on a 7-figure acquisition. He was being offered a place at someone's Christmas table. "I saw you sitting all by yourself," she continued, tilting her head slightly. "And my mommy says nobody should be alone on Christmas." Her words were like a match striking dry wood. Charles looked past her to the table. The mother gave a small wave. The father, too. Even the teenage brother nodded. There was no pity in their faces, just welcome. Real welcome. He glanced down at the cookie decorated with red and green frosting, slightly smudged. He took it gently, almost reverently, and let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. What's your name?" he asked hoarsely. "A Lily?" "A Lily," he repeated, trying the name on his tongue like a foreign word that suddenly made sense. "That's a beautiful name." Thank you," she said, proud. "We have an extra chair." He paused, looked again at his table, spotless, empty, silent. Then at theirs cluttered with plates, glasses of cranberry punch, half-unwrapped gifts, and a glowing centerpiece candle. There was a time long ago when he would have declined, offered a smile, thanked her politely, and returned to his silence, but something cracked tonight. The glass around his carefully constructed life finally chipped, and through that chip, the light of a child's kindness was breaking in. Charles stood slowly, placing his napkin on the table. His knees felt stiff, but his heart felt even stranger, like an old radio being tuned back to the right frequency. Would that be all right with your parents?" he asked. They said yes," Lily said. "I already asked." And with that she held out her hand. He took it. Her fingers were small and warm and real. As they walked together across the restaurant, time shifted. For Charles, it felt like walking back into something he'd lost. Not just a holiday, but a sense of belonging. They reached the table. Her father stood and shook his hand. "I'm Ben, Guan Ben. This is my wife Anna. That's our oldest Matthew. And I guess you've met our little host." Charles smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "Charles," he said. "Thank you for letting me join." Anna waved off the thanks. "It's Christmas. The more the merrier." They made space for him. Offered him a plate. Lily insisted he try the garlic mashed potatoes. Matthew even offered to share his mac and cheese, a Christmas tradition apparently. The fire crackled nearby, and Charles sat down, not as a guest, not as a CEO, not as a burden, but as someone welcome. As someone seen. The evening blurred into something golden. He laughed, genuinely, at Lily's joke about why Santa's reindeer never get parking tickets. He talked about his favorite Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life, and heard about how Matthew was learning the trumpet. Anna asked what he did for a living, and for once, he didn't begin with "I run a company." He told them instead that he once loved baking cookies with his mom. That he used to hang popcorn garlands. That he hadn't been part of something like this in decades, and not one of them looked at him like he was broken. Later, when dessert came, mini cheesecakes and peppermint bark, Lily tugged at his sleeve again. "Do you feel happier now?" she whispered. Charles looked at her, eyes slightly glassy. "Yes," he said softly. "I do." She smiled and leaned her head against his arm. And in that moment, Charles understood something that had eluded him for years. He hadn't needed a better suit, a bigger office, or a higher net worth. He had needed this connection, kindness, presence.